Hi, this is Adam Kunzmiller with RPGG at Gen Con 2016, and I'm joined by Zach Sabbath with Satyr Press, and we're here to look at the ENnie award-winning Maze of the Blue Medusa. So what is the Maze of the Blue Medusa?
It's basically just a dungeon for any kind of like D&D or D&D-like RPG. The idea is I've looked at a lot of like dungeon products and like adventures, and they're really hard to use. And so we kind of made it user-friendly.
So what do we have here? What does the book contain for us?
Okay. Basically, I made this painting. I guess you can see that on the overhead camera. So I made this painting a few years ago, and it's a 30-inch by 40-inch painting, and it's like a big maze. And I drew little doors on it and stuff. And then my co-writer went through, and he just kind of looked at each room, and he decided what each thing was. And so he kind of made a story out of the painting that already existed. There are some things that are pretty obvious, like it's obviously a Medusa, you know,
right.
It's obviously a lady, and this is like a monster made of hands or something. But a lot of things he kind of interpreted and figured out what they were. So he keyed it, and he's a great writer, Patrick Stewart. He mostly writes really weird, sort of poetic RPG material. He did Fire on the Velvet Horizon, which is a sort of weird alternate monster manual, another adventure called Deep Carbon Observatory. But like China Mieville is a big fan of his. He writes very unusual prose, and so I kind of wanted to start with what Patrick could put together. And then I went through and sort of made sure things were functional, rewrote some stuff, added in some stuff. We talked and we wrote, the rest. But then we went and in layout, we took this big painting and cut it up into smaller chunks so that these are all just close-ups of this one giant picture of the maze. And then usually there's, if you've looked at, Under Mountain or any other kind of classic dungeon project, it's usually just you see the numbers on the map and you got to flip all over the place to find the description. The description is very long and you have to figure out what's in there. And as a GM, I just always found these things hard to use, even the classics. And so we tried to use every graphic design thing we could to make it something that you could just use right at the table. So, for example, in this room, so if you just look right at the map, it says what the main most important things are there. So this is the Peacock Guard Room. There's a key here. Evil undead and dead kids, right? Then you look to right on the same spread. It shows where it is in the larger dungeon. If you look on the side, it's all color-coded, so you can find the different sections. This section is, again, so you can see context. Then there's short descriptions of each room so that you can kind of see what do the players see when they walk in. And then only on the next couple pages we have what applies to
the nitty-gritty details for those
of
rooms.
that section,
right.
And if you need to find any section, you can always go like back here, and each part of the maze this is the original painting, these are the keyed version, and you can look here or look here, figure out where you are, and you can always kind of look at the color code, which is there, and find wherever you are. I've been using this for a few weeks now from playing with players from 1, and it's been super easy. So I'm like, oh, it worked,
Great.
And we got, there's a ribbon to keep track. There's also the table for wandering monsters and the table for searching dead bodies is repeated periodically whenever we had it.
Always having to flip back and forth.
Yeah,
and
we have that stuff on the end paper, so you can always flip to it. But also, whenever we had a spare spot in the graphic design where normally you might put like an extra illustration,
we just filler, right?
We just repeated that same chart and the local version for the area for the random encounter chart. Just make it super easy, and then a little map. So you just constantly have the context you need to find stuff.
So it sounds like a DM could have a turnkey, super intricate, really nicely fitting together dungeon at their fingertips with this, essentially.
Yeah, I mean, that was our hope. It's 300 rooms, and we try to do something in terms of just the content that was unusual, but it was still, I mean, the way I think of it is just like vanilla D&D, but a lot of people are like, these are really surreal and weird. I'm like,
really
what's a Medusa?
There.
But I mean, the stuff that we make is usually, it's inspired by like all of the fantasy literature that we're reading, which includes like Jack Vance and like, as well as like, more mainstream things. And so M. John Harrison is a big influence, but just trying to get in things that are unusual and poetic and kind of take players off their guard.
Sure.
There's a lot of puzzles and things that have to, you'll have to like use the dungeon against itself to make it work and not just be.
Cool.
I mean, it was kind of built on the frustrations we had with normal things. You know, you get a big mega dungeon, it seems like half of it was kind of like phoned in, you know?
This is, plain room number 7 with the chest in the corner and the pit trap, at the front.
Or there would be one twist, and it's like, if you touch this, you disappear. It's like, that's it, So we tried to make things that kind of made sense with each other and that had like a complex interacting environment. And also something that you could read through as a GM and you would enjoy reading it.
Yeah, it's well written, cohesive.
Well, I mean, that's Kenneth Hite was like, you're our big competition for the writing award, you know. And I mean, we get along and we talk about writing, like trying to get prose that you could like sit down one day and you're excited to read as a GM, and then hopefully when you run it, you've read it all, kind of like a novel.
Well, and that makes it easier to
world.
use, right?
Yeah.
If it's an engaging book to read, and it's much easier for you to remember where the players are and what's happening in that room and that kind of thing.
I mean, it's hard to sell like the writing is good in a video, but I think I haven't ever seen anybody read what me and Patrick wrote in this book and be like, this is terrible.
I mean, I was flipping. I always look through the books ahead of time, and
that's a good idea.
I definitely
your job.
was definitely like, oh man, this is great. Like I could see myself just sitting here and reading this, but
cool. Thanks.
Not enough time.
Yeah.
So for those who are interested, where can they go to get this?
Well, here at Gen Con, I don't know if anyone's watching the feed now, at 2003, which is the Lamentations of the Flame Princess, they're actually carrying it for Satyr Press.
3003.
2003, I think, or 3000.
No, it's 30 because all the way on the other end.
It's right next to Kingdom Death if you're over there. But anyway, Satyr Press, this is their first book ever, their first RPG book. They're a literary press. They usually put out like small press novels and stuff, like avant-garde books. And so this is their first D&D book, so they don't have a table, but LOTFP is carrying it. If you can't go there, you can get it online at satyr, satyr.press, and it is their only book right now.
It should be an easy to find once you get to that site.
Just click that one button. They are going really fast though, because we just won 3 Ennies and the print run was pretty small to begin with, and these are kind of fancy books. So if you want a first edition, I know that first editions of like Vornheim, my first book, are like $180 on eBay now.
So act fast.
Yeah.
All right, well, Zach, thank you very much for walking us through the Maze of the Blue Medusa.
Thank you for interviewing.
Pleasure.